I'm driving home on my way home from work, and I know I've been slacking so badly with these YouTube videos, but it's so hard to find the time to make time in my schedule to shoot a video and then edit a video with my 2 kids and my career. So I was thinking I drive 45 minutes to work up and back every day for work. So why don't I use this time where I'm stuck in the car to shoot my videos? So this video is going to be my tips, my advice, what I did to pump over 1,000 milliliters in a day. And I'm smiling saying that because for my first pregnancy for my son, I literally don't think I ever produced more than 3 ounces per pump. And now my first pump in the morning, I'm getting like 15 ounces. So I wanted to share this video because a lot of people ask me what I'm doing to keep my supply, to maintain my supply, to increase my milk supply, especially working, and I'm still currently breastfeeding when I'm home. So that's what this video is going to be about. I first want to start off by saying that I am not a lactation consultant. This is not what I specialize in. Obviously, if you're someone who is struggling with this video is what I did. It may not be appropriate for you. So please, feel free to reach out to one of those specialists if you're really in need. And I also want to say that it is okay to give your kids formula. Like I said, my son, I think I breastfed him and pumped for maybe about 4 or 6 weeks. Felt so defeated because I had no idea what I was doing and I felt like I wasn't producing enough. So I switched him over to formula and he is thriving. He's a big boy, so formula is okay. I don't want this video to come across that breastfeeding is better and you have to breastfeed. I think it is very important for moms to do what is best for them and their mental state. Breastfeeding for me this time is a lot easier, but this is my second baby. So formula is great, and don't be ashamed if you have to do formula. The baby eating is what's most important. So the number one thing that I believe truly helped me produce a lot of milk and maintain that is the frequency of how often you are pumping or breastfeeding. It is super important to tell your body in the beginning, make more milk, make more milk. And the way that you tell your body to do that is by pumping or breastfeeding often. So the first 4 to 5 weeks, I was breastfeeding or pumping every 2 to 3 hours during the day. Sorry, this is gonna shake because I'm driving. So from 7 o'clock in the morning until about 9 o'clock at night for the first 3 to 4 weeks, every 2 to 3 hours, there was either a baby or a pump on me. And that was me telling my body, let's go, pick up the pace, bring in that milk. And it's basically telling your body, I need more milk, so it's going to produce more milk. The book I follow to get my kids on a schedule is called Moms on Call. If you've watched my other videos, you've heard me mention these books. These books are life-changing. I have had both my kids sleeping since 2 months old. My daughter's about to be 3 months, and they're both sleeping 12 hours. So I credit these books to that, but basically they will give you schedules based on the baby's age. So what I did, there wasn't necessarily a schedule for birth to 2 weeks. A schedule typically starts at 2 weeks, but what I did is I just started the 2-week schedule when the baby was born, just to get them on some type of routine, because babies respond very well to that. So basically what I did for an example schedule, and I'll put this up here, I would always wake the baby up every single morning at 7 o'clock in the morning. That never changed. I don't care if the baby just went down at 4 a.m. because the baby was up all night. You always wake the baby up at 7 a.m. So I would breastfeed at 7 a.m., breastfeed at 9 a.m., breastfeed at noon, breastfeed at 3, breastfeed at 6, breastfeed at 9, put the baby down to bed. And then depending when the baby would wake up in the middle of the night, that's when I would wake up. I would not do every 2 to 3 hours in the middle of the night. I would extend that out to like 4 hours. I wouldn't go past that. So if Matthew, that's my son's name, if Shaylin, my daughter, if she happened to be sleeping 4 hours, I would not go and wake her up. I never woke her up in the middle of the night. If she wasn't waking up, I would just go and pump so I could at least release myself. But if she woke up, then I would just go and nurse her. With the nighttime feedings, in the beginning, you're probably not gonna get more than 4 hours at a time. So it worked out well for me. But as the baby starts to get older, they're gonna start to sleep longer. And then once your supply is really sustained, then you can start to stretch the amount of hours that you go in between a pump in the middle of the night. And I'll tell you when I finally started to do that. But I would definitely say up until about 3 to 4 weeks, I never went longer than 4 hours at night. When my baby got about 6, 7 weeks old, then I would start to do maybe 6 hours, maybe 7 hours. I would start to stretch it out very slowly so I didn't get a clogged milk duct. Because I had that once and it was so painful. And I'll make a separate video on things that I've learned to do to prevent that and to treat that. But again, recap, every 2 to 3 hours throughout the day. At night, for the first few weeks, I would not go longer than 4-ish hours at night. Another thing that I did that really helped my body, or tell my body, hey, make more milk, let's go, let's go. My choice, I wanted to go back to work in a month after having my baby. And I knew that I really wanted to have a really good freezer stash of milk all ready to go if possible, so that I didn't have to stress so much about, making sure that I had enough milk for when I was at work. So another thing that I did, and this is kind of crazy, but I swear by it. Remember that schedule I told you with the breastfeeding every 3 hours? So the first 2 breastfeeding sessions in the morning, the 7 and the 9, I don't know if you noticed, they're 2 hours apart. And that's because your prolactin level is elevated the most in the beginning, and that's when you get the most milk. So I think the moms on call schedule wanted your baby to get as much food as possible in the morning. So that's why they have you feed at 7 and at 9. But after that, it's every 3 hours until about 7, 9 o'clock at night, depending what schedule you're on. So what I would do is, after each feeding, example, I would feed at 7, I would feed at 9, that never changed. After the 9 a.m. feeding, the baby wouldn't eat again till noon. But what I would do would be at 10:30 a.m., so an hour and a half after I breastfed, I would pump. Then it would bring me to my noon feeding, I would breastfeed. Then at 1:30, I would pump, 3 p.m. breastfeed, 4:30 pump, 6 p.m. breastfeed, 7:30 pump, 9 p.m. breastfeed. So I was throwing additional pumping sessions in there. I was probably only getting like an ounce or 2 when I was pumping in between, because obviously my body's still trying to produce milk and I had just breastfed an hour and a half earlier, so you're not going to make a ton of milk that way. But again, this all tells your body, make more milk, make more milk. So I did that for the first 3 to 4 weeks, and I swear that's what really allowed my body to produce more and more milk. Now I had to, because I was going back to work in a month, after I did that for 3 to 4 weeks, I had to stop doing that, obviously, because then what happens is when you start doing something so frequently, your body starts to remember it. So for example, let's say it was 10:30 in the morning and I was due for my pump, but let's say I wasn't home or I was at work, my breasts would start to get the letdown feeling, which I think this is super important for women to be aware of, because I never understood what that meant when they were like, oh, you need to get let down, that, before you can really start having that milk flow out. And let down feels like kind of like a tingling sensation. I don't want to say burning because it doesn't hurt, but your breasts like tingle, and that's how you know you're about to leak and you really want to start pumping or breastfeeding. So if I wasn't by my pump or my baby, but 10:30 a.m. came around, or 1:30, whenever I would typically add in these pumps, I would start to leak. So I always had to keep pads in because I would leak. Another really important tip with having a successful breastfeeding pumping session is make sure you have a good pump. The first pump I used for my son was called the Lancino pump. It wasn't super strong, and even when I did consult a lactation specialist, even she was like, yeah, that's not a great pump. So I got the Medela this time, and I do think the Medela is fantastic. I plug it right into the wall, or it does come with a separate battery operated like traveling pack. I also invested in the LV, which is the cordless breast pump. You're supposed to slip it right into your bra, make it super easy to pump on the go. I had an awful experience with it. I just felt like it wasn't strong enough to completely empty me, and that's very important when you're breastfeeding and when you're pumping, for your breast to get completely emptied, because if you leave milk in there, it's going to tell your body like, oh, I guess you didn't need this much milk, I'll produce less, or it can make you more likely to get clogged milk ducts, which I got, which were awful. So I did not like the LV. My sister and my mom gifted that for me, and I think it was like $400, $500, and I did not like it. So I stopped using it. So I strictly use the Medela, and I truly believe that that's one of the strongest pumps, best pumps out in the market to really get all that milk out. Apparently there's another pump called the Spectra, which is really good too. Never tried it, but I heard that one was good. So make sure you get a good pump. A lot of pumps you can get through your insurance. Both the Lancino pump and the Medela pump I got through my insurance. They covered it completely. With breastfeeding and pumping so much, especially if you do what I did and you pumped in between breastfeeding, especially in the beginning, your nipples are going to be sore. They're going to feel raw. You know, I remember when I was doing so much research on this, I would see women say, breastfeeding doesn't hurt, breastfeeding doesn't, or it shouldn't hurt. That's how you know you're doing it correctly. And I used to get so frustrated when I heard that, because I'm like, yes, it does. Like, this is so uncomfortable, especially in the beginning when your like nipples are trying to toughen up. It does hurt. However, I get what they're saying. In order to make sure the baby is latching correctly, if the baby is kind of concentrating more on your nipple, number one, they're not getting the appropriate amount of milk out, and they're not latching correctly, so it's going to hurt and your nipples are going to crack and bleed, and that's not correct. So I do understand that. However, I learned how to latch the baby correctly and making sure that the entire nipples in the baby's mouth, yada yada, but it's still uncomfortable. And I'm right now almost, I think I'm like 2.5 months postpartum, and I would probably say the last 3 or 4 weeks, maybe the last month, it finally stopped hurting. It was definitely still sore for me. So you need to keep your nipples, I hate this word, but I'm gonna use it, as moist as possible. I hate that word, but they need to be goopy. Like when you're done breastfeeding, or in between breastfeeding, in between pumping, you need to load up your nipples with the lanolin cream, with Aquaphor, with nipple butter. I used Earth Mama's nipple butter, amazing. And then what I would also do, and I'll show you this, I wear these like disposable breast pads in my bra. I would get like a nice thin layer of Aquaphor on there, because Aquaphor really just doesn't absorb. It feels like Vaseline, just like kind of sits on top of on your skin if you put it on your skin, or it'll just sit on top of the pad. So the pad was always like lubricated in some way. So that's really important, to make sure your nipples are super, super goopy, so they don't dry out and get cracked and sore, because that's gonna make breastfeeding and pumping a little bit more uncomfortable. These are the pads I'm talking about. These are disposable breast pads. And basically what I will do is I will goop them up with some Aquaphor. You can use Vaseline, lanolin cream, you know, whatever type of ointment you'd like. And then I'll kind of rub it all over the inside of the pad, and then I'll place this against my breast, and it just allows the nipples not to dry out. And it just makes them feel a little bit better in between feedings. Another thing that I did, sorry, I'm going over the bridge and it's so bumpy. Another thing that I did, which helped increase my milk supply, is I did invest in some good supplements. One of the supplements that I used was by Legendary Milk brand. I'll put it over here. It's their Cash Cow. Again, I was doing some research and I saw that that supplement was really good in helping to produce breast milk. It has a couple different ingredients in it. It has alfalfa in it, which can help increase milk supply. It has flaxseed in it, which can help stimulate that prolactin level I talked about, which is good for producing more milk. So there's a couple different more like herbal ingredients in it that is beneficial. The directions say, this is my little tip for that, the directions on the bottle will say take 2 pills 3 times a day. So take 6 pills a day. I started off doing that. Oh my God, I had really bad like cramping in my stomach. I had a lot of abdominal pain, and I was doing some research and I saw that some other women got that. So I backed it down to 1 pill 3 times a day. So I take 3 pills a day. I could technically try to go back, I could definitely try to go back up to taking 2 pills 3 times a day, but I'm making so much milk, I didn't feel like it was necessary. So you can either start taking it the way they recommend, or you can take less. I still think it's helpful. And then I also started taking sunflower lecithin, which is another supplement by the Legendary Milk brand that's really good in preventing and treating milk ducts. And so I do think that's helped, because I haven't had a clogged milk duct since I had that one, knock on wood. But I do believe those 2 supplements really do help increase my milk supply, maintain it, and prevent clogged milk ducts, which is super important. I did invest in Lactation Cookies, Lactation Tea. I have a couple of those things, and I will eat them and drink them from time to time. I don't think those were like huge boosts in my milk supply, but I don't think they hurt, and they were good snacks. So some of the ones I did were by Legendary Milk. I think it was like an oatmeal chocolate chip cookie. I did them. There's this chai tea. I love chai tea from Starbucks. So there's this chai tea lactation tea that I'll show you guys that I also used, which was good. And I feel like there's one more thing that I did, but I can't remember. But those are something super easy to throw in your breast pump bag. If you get hungry and you want a little snack, or you want to, boost that milk supply, that's a great way to do that. Now, I'll do a separate video on everything that I keep in my pumping bags. I think that's really good for you guys to know, always things to have in your bag when you're pumping so that you feel prepared. Another tip this is huge. I can't stress this enough, because I had it for my first baby, but I clearly had no idea what I was doing, so I wasn't using it correctly. This is huge in increasing your, I won't say increasing your milk supply, for doing nothing extra, but getting extra milk each time you breastfeed to throw in the freezer. Have you guys heard of Hakka? I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's this silicone, technically it's like a pump, I guess you would say. You latch it onto the breast that you're not breastfeeding from, and it basically gets all the drip off from, because when you're breastfeeding, the other breast will leak as well. So it basically will get all of that, so it's not wasted. So if you're breastfeeding, let's say 7 or 8 times a day, and you're using this Haakaa each time, I can guarantee you that you're gonna get an additional, I don't know, 7, 10, even 15 ounces of extra milk by doing nothing, by just hooking it on the breast that you're not using to feed. It will get that drip off, and then you can just keep adding that. And then what I would do is I would keep adding that to a bag and then put it in the freezer at the end of the day. I have gotten 12 ounces just by doing the Haakaa throughout the day. So really, it's like $10, get it. It is so helpful in getting extra milk without you having to do a thing. These are all things that I was totally unaware of, and now it makes perfect sense to me. And please do not feel discouraged if you're like, oh my God, I didn't know all this stuff. I didn't know any of this either. This is my second baby, and I feel like I'm a pro at breastfeeding, and I just want to share all these little tips that have really helped me continue to breastfeed. Almost going on 3 months now, and I'm very proud of myself. I'll show you a video at the end of what my freezer looks like. It is stocked. Like, I have never been more proud of this freezer and all the blood, sweat, and tears that has gone into it. But guys, breastfeeding, it may look on social media and maybe in this video that it's so easy for me, and I love to. I genuinely do love doing it, because it is a beautiful thing. It's great for my daughter. It's great for me and my body. It helps my uterus go back to normal size, so my stomach can get nice and flat. There's so many benefits to it. But that does not mean that it is not the most difficult, exhausting thing that I have ever done. Like, almost weekly, a couple times a week, I say to myself, God, I can't wait to be done with this. I cannot wait to stop being connected to a pump. I'm pumping in between patients. I'm pumping before work. I'm pumping after work. I'm pumping when I get home. I mean, it is exhausting, and it's not necessarily fun all the time. So if you choose to breastfeed, and even if you do it for a couple of weeks, great job. I mean, be proud of yourself. All that matters that your baby is being fed, whether it's by formula or it's by breast milk, it really does not matter. But if you want to try to breastfeed, if you want to try to get that milk supply up, increase your milk supply. I can't believe that I make over 1,000 milliliters a day. Like, I used to see YouTube videos like this, and I'm like, how are you people doing this? And now I'm one of them, and it's just crazy, and it's amazing. So I just hope that you learned a lot in this video, and I hope that I helped you. I'm so sorry that I'm not in my house shooting this video, but you know what? This mama's got to multitask, and this is probably going to be a lot of what my videos are until things calm down in my life, which I don't think they will, because I have 2 kids. Things are only going to pick up. They're not going to slow down. But thank you guys for watching. If you have questions, I will try to put everything in the description, links to everything. I will do my best, but don't hesitate to reach out if you think of something that I have not answered for you. Okay, guys, bye.